I'm Chase.
And I'm Timothy.
And this is Customer Service.
Good evening.
Dr. Brondo, how we doing, big dog? Dr. Brondo is a good one.
Because we're dangerously close to Dr. Bronner's.
We are all as one.
Good. We're doing. We always say that the evening whenever we do an evening pod or an evening intro, it has such a different vibe than when we normally do it like right away in the morning.
Because you've already lived a full day.
Yeah,
we've been alive for the whole day, and information is piled on, and the light changes, and you just feel different.
It can be hard being alive for a full day.
Hey, a lot of information.
It's a lot of.
By the end of the day, I got one cell left. We'll joke that at the end of the night, I'll be like, you know what I really want? And I'll just be droning on about some sort of fucking dumb food. I could eat 8 hot dogs with chili on them if they were in front of me right now. That kind of statement. She'll just be like, we're down to the last one. You just gotta shut up. You're on your last brain cell for the day, and I just need that one to be gone as well.
When we went to summer camp, which is one of my least favorite things I've ever done in life.
Yeah.
Because there was daddy long legs in the bathroom, so I didn't go to the bathroom basically the entire time I was there, and
piss maxing, etc.
The food was gross, and we would go back in the cabin at night, because they like a counselor didn't sleep in the room or anything. You're just kind of in there, you know, with these random kids.
Yeah.
And my friend every single night would be like, you know what I would eat if I could eat anything? And it would just be like laundry listing anything that you could think, because you're just like, I would take anything over this very microscopic amount of food they're giving to us, and it sucks.
Yeah.
And we would just talk about, and so it's a little of that energy.
It's like you go to a buddy's house and you're like, they're alive, so they must eat at some point.
Yeah.
But I know this is a dry house. Yeah. So I'm not.
I have created a dry house. This is that ingredient house thing people talk about. We very much. There's nothing unless you have enough energy and creativity to create something. From ingredient there's nothing for you. It's not like there's not chips.
I can feel the despair that I would feel at 14 staying the night at your house if it were your house now, and just being like, buddy, what am I going to do with these raw ingredients? Yeah,
or I'm careening towards like almond dad. The whole it ain't nothing. It's just fucking dried fruit and almonds, and I'm still trying to do my as least amount of chemicals as I can do. There's still things like you just can't help that are just easier, or I find a thing of candy in the thing over here and I'll eat that or whatever, whatever it is. But
we've talked about this a lot, where it's kind of everything in moderation, bro.
Yeah.
I told there's just one lady I think of every time I think of something like this, where it's a family I grew up playing soccer with their kids. All of us were in the same general range, and we would all play soccer indoor in the winter together, et cetera, et cetera. I knew this family well. And the mom was running, half marathons, and she was vegan, and she was doing all these things. She would lead conditioning in the summer for our soccer teams and shit. And then she gets fucking cancer. You know what I mean? And it's like, I just think, I'm not saying that her healthy lifestyle led her to that, but I'm saying there are some things that it just happens. You know what I mean?
Genetic or whatever. And there's nothing you can do. Yeah.
The argument I'm making is you should do things right when you can, but you have to let yourself off the hook in some regard, some percentage of how you live your life, because you can do it all right and it still might not work out.
Well, and it's funny, we actually kind of loosely talk about this with the guest today, but you kind of it's hard for me to you start doing something. I'm trying to break this line of thinking where you start to do something, you're like, oh, I'm going to go on this diet, or I'm going to stop drinking Diet Coke, or whatever your whole deal is. And then what's tricky is that you as soon as you hit a bump, or oh, I had to go home for a couple days, or I had to travel, or I had to do long shifts, or whatever these things could be. And you're like, as soon as I'm off of them, it's like, oh, then it's all over. And it's like, no, it's not. You just had one day where you kind of slipped, and it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it doesn't matter at all.
And it's fine. No, then it's all rules we construct for ourselves. You know what I mean? Taking a break off weed, coming back, you smoke weed once, you're like, well, I got to just start smoking it every day at all moments that I'm alive then. That's obviously what I have to do. You know what I mean? So I'm with you, though. It's just moderation, dude. Just meeting in the middle in some regard in almost every scenario is better than an extreme on either side.
I like the idea of thinking about the way I consume things and just being like, I have a healthy relationship with my consumption of every type of like, whether it's social media or food or, you know, TV,
Literally
whatever it
anything,
is, it doesn't
whatever,
matter.
yeah.
You know what I mean? I just want to have it be every single thing. I'm like, oh, it's fine. It's not, I don't have any problems.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I think you get older and it's more like, I'll do anything to just feel like B- or above 90% of the time. I will absolutely sacrifice anything that tastes good or feels good or do anything that so I can like be on my normal shit. You know, there's nothing worse than like, you know, like you're just so tired the next day because you like stayed up and like, because you're like, it was fun for a minute kind of, but now it's like, you know, I can't.
I agree with you to an extent.
I can't rock with it anymore.
You give me 4 spicy McChickens at 10:30 p.m. I'm likely to eat them all. Even regardless of how to make, like I'm gonna do it, you know what I mean? But there are things like you know, I don't know what time do you usually go to bed, dude? Because lately I've been watching The Bear or what have you. I've been up till like midnight lately, and that feels late for me.
Well, I've always been a late person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for the most part, up until GI, I was staying up for 2, 3 a.m.
Yeah, you and I were up till 2 or 3
and it just never bothered me, honestly. Truthfully, I never felt any different. It didn't, if I slept in or did whatever, it just, no version of it would bother me. If I had to be up early, it was no different than I just don't think I required that much sleep, you know?
Yeah.
And then I think some of it's just you just get older, and that's part of it. But the other, I've also been trying to make a much bigger effort to like stay active every single day in some way, shape, or form, even if it's as much as just like a mile walk or something. And that'll kind of force it. But the other thing is, I just try to have every night be like a thing in my head. Like I want to accomplish like in a 5-day week, you know what I'm saying? Like, won't count the weekends, those are whatever. You just want to be like, okay, well, one night I want to watch like a good movie. One night I want to watch like fun TV. One night I want to work on music for a little bit. One night I want to do a little extra work because that'll catch me up. Or I just try to do like one of those things. So I have it. It's more scheduled now. And I like to take a shower at night and in the morning too if I can. But I like to do it at night before I go to bed. So now I kind of have like these systems in place to where as long as it's like normal operations, I'm in bed. I don't know. Sometimes I'm in bed early and I'm just like, I just want to look at my phone for an hour. And so I'll log back into things and check them out and then go to bed.
Yeah.
So it just depends. I mean, earlier, but I'd still say my goal is to be asleep by midnight or earlier.
I think that's my general where I'm trying to land right now. Because I don't think 10.
I feel bad if I get too much sleep too. So I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Because I am famous for doing 10 and a half, 11 hours of sleep every night of the week, if not more.
I'll turn anything into an addiction is just the reality. And this is just like my current one of being like, I feel like at least it's healthy.
Yeah.
Mentally and physically. So it's solid. But you're always just chasing some high you had one time. You know what I mean? And that's kind of the same thing where it's like, I just felt so good when I ate this way and did this thing and went to bed at this time and did these activities. So I don't know. But I also don't care. I don't, who cares? Who cares? It's all going to get screwed up and it's out of my control.
Yeah.
And, you know.
Yeah. Hey, you starting the juice cleanse this week? Weren't you going to start at the end of this week?
I should have planned it better because this is like Gia's. It was her.
She started kindergarten.
We had first day of kindergarten today. So it was
Abby came in looking like a real Midwest mom, tears in the eyes.
She fell apart a few different times.
Yeah.
I was sort of fine, but I had a weird beginning to the week because of it. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah. So it's like, you know, it's a big thing because you sort of more.
I didn't even think about your emotional reaction to it. I don't know why.
People don't think about the guy's reaction sometimes. You're supposed to just, you know, because you handle it in different ways and maybe it's a little less showy, so sometimes you don't see it. Or, but you still go through stuff. I mean, I accept that there's nothing you do to change these things. You know what I mean? Like, it is what I can get upset. It's not going to change anything.
She's got to go to school.
Yeah. And it doesn't take away from anything that was before, and it doesn't take away from anything that's after. You just sort of rock with whatever they're doing. You know what I mean? It's more just like making sure, like, you just have to like shift as a parent all the time to like, this is what I'm going to do now. This is who I have. Like, I have to shift my support system to this now. And that's all it is. It's just it's a shift. It's a changing of the guards. You know, so it's just a different thing. And then you get into this routine and this will feel like nothing.
I hope she had the best day.
I'm sure she did. So. She's a warrior.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get into it. Yeah. We have a really good guest today. I'm sure a lot of our listeners know him. This is Jason Stewart from How Long Gone, and Them Jeans as the DJ from Tall Tales Prior. He's got his newsletter. He's done a lot of different food writing.
He and Chris both make a cameo in The Bear. Just for a quick moment. That's true.
Yeah. So you might know him from there. It's a great conversation with someone who does at least kind of at least one of the things that we do as well. And it was fun to just kind of get to know, like, you know, more about the progression of things for them and how you kind of navigate an interesting set of circumstances, more or less, with their career. They both have such interesting arcs, and it was really fun to get Jason's perspective on it, because we talked to Chris, and you know, he's a very all around interesting, cool guy, and it was just fun to pick his brain on, you know, the different avenues of his career and life and interests. So it was a great conversation. We'd been really looking forward to it. It was fun to have him on. Really appreciate him making the time, and yeah, it's a fun one.
Yeah, let's just bop right in.
Yeah, let's go. Oh, I'll line them all up.
You better.
What time of day do you sauna? Does it change, or you got like a specific time that you stick to?
Changes every day. Just whenever I have an hour.
Whenever you have an hour, you don't need the routine of it. I'd say I like the morning sauna, but here's the thing: night would be just as good, realistically. In fact, if I had one in the house, it might be like a 2 or 3 day thing.
Yeah, I probably sauna 4-5 days a week. And it's just kind of whenever I want, you know?
Yeah.
But a sauna, a night sauna is good. You do a sauna straight into the cold shower, and then you really sleep like a baby, you know?
Yeah, I've done it both ways, in that, like, it depends on, like, what I have a 5-year-old. So it's changed, like, my gym schedule has changed from mornings to nights. I'll do whatever I can fit in. And you're right, the night is nice, but it takes, like, I don't know. It's a lot out of you. It's like that's your whole evening, no personal time, just that. So it's difficult.
You know, you have kids, so it's different. But I mean, the whole point of the sauna is so you don't have to talk to anyone. You know.
Yeah.
You close the doors off, and then, you know, I was just listening to another podcast. They say, like, when you're reading a book, nobody can read a book with you, but when you're like watching TV or watching a movie.
Yeah.
In the living room, people can watch something with you, and then you could feel their energy, even if they're not saying anything. But if you're reading a book, then, you know, it's pretty much just you. And the sauna kind of creates that. You close the door, you're in the sauna, and that's it.
Do you read in there? Is that what you do?
I read, watch movies. We have a guy who a filmmaker on our podcast tomorrow did a movie called Skincare, and so I watched the screener for that in the sauna today.
Is it good?
It is good, yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about it. Yeah.
Elizabeth Banks, and really cool soundtrack. Can't give it away, but yeah, it's sick.
No, I feel it. Are you just getting back from traveling?
Yeah, I got back a couple of days ago from London, and then I go to New York next week. We're doing something for the U.S. Open.
Oh, sick.
Damn. What are you like? Are you like doing a podcast right? Are you hosting? What are you doing?
We're doing an event with On.
Yeah.
Formerly known as On Running. Mm-hmm. But we worked with them last year for the U.S. Open, and then we're going to be hosting a party, like a tennis party with Ben Shelton and a bunch of DJs in Brooklyn. And there'll be like some exhibition matches with Ben and some other people, and then I think Ben's going to be on How Long Gone as well.
Cool.
Dude, right on. When you guys were in Denver, one of the audience members asked specifically about like Babolat or some sort of.
Hey, I think your mic might be kind of on mute or something.
He didn't even turn it around.
I didn't even turn it around.
He got chatting and wasn't even turning it around.
Okay. Now I can hear you.
I was going to say, when you guys were in Denver, we met you guys briefly, but one of the audience members was asking specifically about Babolat and all that. Do you play?
I used to play a lot, but I don't play as much anymore because I just don't have the time. But I would, like, during COVID, we played a lot. Chris and I would play every day almost when he lived in LA.
Nice.
But now we're just traveling and he's away, and it's kind of a pain in the ass. I used to have a really good tennis setup, and it kind of fell through. And now I don't want to go back to regular tennis with regular people.
Yeah, fighting over courts and it's miserable. Yeah.
I had a really sweet setup. I had a key at this community college, and they were just, it was like $100, and you could just go play $100 a year.
Oh,
and you could just go play whenever. 6 like mint condition collegiate courts, but all that fun ended.
Yeah.
Did you like
So
grow
now-
up playing, or did you take it up later?
No, I never played it growing up. I started playing it when I would go to Coachella, and then there were like all the houses that everyone stayed at. There would be tennis courts and like the hotels, and that was like our hangover activity. We would wake up and we would just go out into the 110-degree sun with like a bunch of water and Gatorade and coconut water and shit, and just play tennis for a few hours and just sweat it all out.
Yeah.
And then a couple of us got really into it and then just kind of stuck with it.
It's tough, like having hobbies as an adult sort of is tough because, like you're saying, like you get into these nice rhythms with things and then they just get fucked up constantly. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's so frustrating as like someone who likes to have a routine around things to like, you know, like I said, like the gym thing, you get into one routine and then my daughter's school schedule changes and I start doing it at night, or if I like make music and shit and it's like, oh, that's the time of day you can do that. It's like, same thing. It's gotta be the same thing with you, 'cause you guys are like traveling all the time, it seems like.
Yeah. I mean, it's not as bad as, bad is the wrong word, but it's not as difficult as raising a child. I will say that. It's still pretty chill, but it does fuck up the routine. And I'm a routine-y kind of guy, and then if I fall out of my routine, that's when the darkness starts coming. You know what I mean?
So what do you do with that? Like, because I feel very similar in that way, and like travel really fucks me up. Like, so how do you balance that? Like, what do you do like when so you kind of stay in some sort of rhythm? I
don't at all. I just kind of, when I travel, I just have to give myself to the travel. If I'm, if I am in a good setup and I'm like I'm going to go to New York next week, I'll just be posted up in a hotel for a week. The hotel probably has a gym with a sauna in it. I'll walk around. I'll get my coffee situation set up in the morning. And then, from there, that's kind of all you can really do. But I don't really like planning it all out. Like if I'm going to be traveling, I'm going to go wherever the wind blows me. But if I'm home, I'm very regimented. I only leave the house to buy food, and then I come home. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we feel the same because we have to travel for like we at least have to go to Japan twice a year at bare minimum, and that's like, and it's a whole thing. But we also, neither of us like to plan any of it out. Like I don't even really look up the things to like eat or do. We just kind of figure. The only thing we look up is like coffee shops, because I feel like if you go to a cool one, the other cool stuff will be around it. But other than that, it's just like milling around. It's the only way I, like you're saying, kind of feel comfortable traveling, because then I don't feel like the pressure. But yeah, dude, at home, it's like I want to do the same exact thing every single day.
Yeah. Well, I just want to be able to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it. And obviously that everyone wants to do that, but I get pretty close. But every day is different, and every day I want to do mostly the same things. But like, yeah, if you don't hit your little routine points, then I'll probably be in a grumpy mood. And
what's an ideal day looking like for you these days?
You wake up, you get a good night's sleep, drink some water, walk the dogs, get some work done, get some type of fitness in that makes you feel like you, did enough exercise for the day, and just do a little this, little that around the house. And then just, like I feel like going out, or I feel like cooking, or I feel like getting drunk, or I feel like smoking weed and watching a movie, whatever pops up into my mind. I just want to be like, okay, cool. Let's go get Korean barbecue right now.
Yeah.
And then you do it.
And look at that. What is it like? So like, what about when it comes to like the podcast? Like, what's the ideal? Do you have an ideal setup for that? Like solo versus guest versus, if
you guys are together or separate.
Away, yeah.
I don't have an ideal. I kind of like all the ways that we do it. I like podcasting with a guest that's from a different country or a faraway place, and getting to, explore a new way of talking to somebody. I like editing those podcasts together. I like, taking a good pod and making it great with editing. But I also like just being hungover in a hotel room with Chris in Denver or Minneapolis or some random place, and we just hit record and just bullshit for an hour and hit upload. I like doing all of those things. The only bummer I would say is when we're doing live shows and doing podcasts at the same time. Sometimes on the same day, sometimes an hour before. So like recording a podcast at 5, putting a suit on, getting in an Uber and going to do a live show 2 hours after that. That can be a little draining for you. But as long as there's a little, a couple days in between each pod for my pod brain to recharge.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
I mean, I feel like you guys have probably touched on this, but how much prep are you putting into stuff? Is it much or just sort of letting it go?
It is not much.
Yeah.
It is not much. Sometimes if the guest is a person who I have no idea who they are, then I will do a little bit of research. But usually what I like to do is see if they've done any podcasts and listen to them. And that gets me the best information, or like the most valuable information for me. So like if there's an author who wrote a book, I'm not going to read the book. That's going to take a month.
Yeah.
And we do 3 episodes a week, and we're rolling them, bro. They're going boom, 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 boom. So I'll just listen to them on a podcast. They did a podcast 3 years ago, and I just hear how they talk, get a level of their sense of humor, how professional they are, how loose they are, little things about their life, and that's it. Go from there. But otherwise, doing the prep work is the opposite of our style. We just like to shoot the shit as if you just met somebody in an elevator or something,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like tricky to figure out like what somebody wants to talk about, because I feel like at least that's always how it feels like when even like just you have like an event or someone wants to talk about fashion and stuff, and like I get it, like but it's what we do all the time. It's not like 100% of the time what I want to talk about, because it's just it's like work, you know what I mean, to a certain degree. And I love it, but it's and so it's like that's why when we're doing these, I always feel like I'm just listening for like, oh cool, they've perked up a little bit around something that feels different. Let's just try to go down that road. Do you have things that you're like listening for, or are you just trying to like truly let it be as conversational and just whatever it is if possible?
Well, it's kind of interesting, like when you have guests who are famous or used to being interviewed a lot, they kind of approach the scenario like, let's see what these guys got kind of thing. Like I'm ready for you to win me over. I'm doing you a favor by gracing you with my presence, like that kind of attitude. And those are the people who always say that's a good question. Like they'll just straight up tell you that is a good question, which is their roundabout way of saying all the other questions you asked me were bad. So it's like it's a double-edged sword where it's like I'm helping you by saying like more of this, please, but that also means like you've been sucking ass for the last 17 minutes, so more, But so if you pay attention, people will like literally tell you like this is good, this is bad, I like this direction, I don't like this direction. And it's, most of it is just like the body language and just the tone and the overall aura of the conversation. You can tell when somebody's into it or not into it, And then you can kind of ping pong them and work them up into a frenzy.
Is it like, do you have like, I don't know if you grew up like watching, like I grew up watching late night, so I was really into like interviewing and all that stuff, but I never really thought about it much more than I was just consuming a lot of that. Did you have like guys that you like looked up to, whether it be, I don't know, in podcasting or late night or whatever, like, cause it feels like sometimes you guys have a little bit of that kind of like Letterman style, like you said, like looking for the tension and kind of tweezing at that a little bit. Is that like on purpose, or do you have like, is it just like in your blood from watching stuff, or?
Yeah, I mean, I watched a fair amount of late night interviews. I don't know. I've never really been like a huge interview fan. Late nights. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of legendary Letterman interviews where real conversations happen with real people. But 90% of the guests on late night television are not going to give you what you're looking for. So it's mostly diamonds in the rough. So, I guess Chris and I both kind of come from the school of just entertaining ourselves with conversation, just, growing up, being bored, and you have to figure out how to entertain yourself. And my friend group growing up was just cracking jokes, making fun of each other, making fun of other people, talking shit. But, well, you know, in a nice, happy way. We're not trying to be mean and ruin people's lives and hurt anyone's feelings, but, you know, have a little fun. And that's the kind of stuff where you were able to alienate a lot of people very quickly, but then the people that really like it, you know, you've got a friend for life kind of thing. So you can walk into a party and say something and, you know, 99 people will be like, what the fuck is going on here? And one person's like, you're my new best friend because you just did that. And then you just got to keep collecting those bros. And then you have an audience, you know.
It's, you know, it's like well, because you can kind of tell, like, when it's not like you guys like pick at a scab. It's not like you're describing. It's but you'll see that like there's a tension point, and then because it's almost like they're pushing back. Like it's kind of, I mean, we've seen it to a certain degree with however far we're into this now, whatever 100 episodes. But it's like you start to get to this like. It's not that they don't want to be there. It's just like they're kind of not giving you everything, and you got to find like that, like, how can I clip your knee just a little bit so that, you know, so that you feel more comfortable. It's a really tricky thing that I think you guys do very well. So I just wondered how much how much are you watching for it, or is it just like you having fun with each other?
That stuff is all autopilot.
Yeah.
We don't consciously do it whatsoever, but it's just innately inside of us. But also, and we've said it before a bunch on interviews, like the guest can be as participant or not, and we are still going to podcast. Like if the guest is not giving us anything, then Chris and I will just talk to each other.
Yeah. If
the guest is great, we don't have to say a word. It doesn't matter. But you know, the episode, you can kind of see, like when I'm editing it, all of our, you know, my recording, the guest recording, Chris's recording. And if the episode is good, you know, Chris and I are not talking that much. And I mean, not if the episode is good. If the guest is good, we're just sitting back and enjoying the show, and you know, just kind of feeding them balls as they hit them into the net. But if the guest sucks ass, we're tap dancing through the whole thing, trying to build a house out of sticks and twigs, you know.
Well, and we asked Chris this when we talked to him, but it's the most interesting interview I think you guys have done, and I knew it would be before even having to listen to it. It was Jay Mascis, because like maybe the most known strange interview giver of all time.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like kind of goes in to where it's like, I don't know how, maybe you feel you can't tell if he is doing this as a bit or if it's like, I mean, it feels like just him, but he gives less than zero. And I really mean this. I think, and I'm a huge Dinosaur Jr. fan. I feel like I've watched most of his interviews throughout his life, including some of my favorites, like when he reviews guitar pedals and they don't have, no one's interviewing, so there's nothing to give back. It's just him monologuing, and he's just maybe like 4 sentences, and it's really great. But
this one's good.
Yeah, basically, yeah, the purple one's good. I thought it was a great. You got him to talk about. It's like you broke him down.
Yeah.
Did you do? Was there any prep? Was there any like thinking on that one, or did you? Because that one would make me very nervous. Yeah.
We did not really do any. I did zero prep with that one. I had no talking points. I mean, I'm aware of Dinosaur Jr. and I'm a fan of the music, but I'm not too deep into his lore and personal life and backstory, and I didn't really want to, but I had a lot of people tell me, you know, oh, just to let you know, he's known as being the worst interview in music, and then that just sort of excited me. And you know, I guess with him, my strategy, or we didn't have a strategy, but just as we started talking, I started trying to mirror him and to see, you know, if we're going to have nothing at all off.
Yeah.
Let's go for it. Let's go 10 rounds.
Yeah.
And I remember just trying to channel questions where I don't know, I guess I got the vibe from him that like he's very monotone. He's not going to give you anything, and it's probably going to come off like he's not really into this interview. He's not being rude, but he's just kind of like, are we still doing this kind of thing? Yeah. And then I was trying to figure out, but I knew that he's like a playful guy. Like he's a kooky guy. He has a sense of humor. And the moment where we broke him was when I asked him if he's ever had a themed birthday party. And I have no idea why I asked the question. Yeah. I don't know how it popped into my head, but I had to like channel as if I just took like the biggest bong rip of my entire life. Yeah. And just like go like Bill and Ted's kind of mode where I'm just like, just a question that like a 3-year-old would ask another 3-year-old on the playground. Yeah. And he was like, yeah, when I was 7, I had a birthday party that was skiing themed. Yeah. And then that led to a story about he went skiing and broke both of his legs at the same time and showed up to school and girls gave him attention because he was a wheelchair guy and then, blah, blah, blah. And it ended up being an amazing conversation. But like you were talking about tension, that was just all tension. Yeah. And when I was editing that episode, I remember trying to kind of amplify the tension and move things around to where the silences were longer sometimes. I'm usually doing the opposite, condensing conversations down to where there's not lulls. But for this one, I was like, I want people to not be able to make it to the end of this easily. And I want there to be a reward. If you can sit through this whole thing, you are the type of person who deserves this very special episode. And everyone else, just turn it off right now and go listen to something else because this ain't for you kind of thing. Oh, and I guess that kind of goes back to what I was talking about before of you got to alienate most people.
Yeah, it was the exact moment I was going to bring up was the skin because first of all, any answer he gave to that question would have been funny, especially because just to give nothing the whole time and then throw that out like it was a regular response, which it also wasn't, is just so smart. I mean, it's like I think all good like interviews, it's either one of two things: either you somehow roll into this just feels like an old friendship, or just bantering between people who are like-minded, and then that's nice to hear, and there's a nice rhythm to that. Or you get the opposite, which is like, given nothing. Can I allow this to become something? And I think, I don't know, in that particular moment, that was a very good episode for that reason. Just because like I don't think anyone has ever like fucked with him because it's difficult. Because you're not like making fun of him. It's just like he's giving you nothing. So what the hell are you supposed to do?
Yeah. I think it reminds me of like, growing up and talking to people, you can just imagine Jay Mascis in high school being the weirdo kid at lunch where nobody wants to talk to him kind of thing, keeping to himself. And I have been that person in one way or another in my life. I've had friends who are like that. And you kind of, I don't know, you like, I know the Jay Mascis personality type somewhat. So I know like, I'm feeling around in the dark with him, but I at least know like what direction to feel in versus just all around. And I remember when I was asking him, he was talking about riding his bike around, and he was like describing his bicycle, and it sounded like he like cared about it a lot, and it was like kind of a sick bicycle, which was unusual for Jay Mascis.
Yeah.
And I remember asking him how much his bicycle cost. And I feel like no one has ever asked him that question. And I think he's probably proud of the fact that being like a weirdo guitar rock star guy, he can easily buy like a $10,000 bicycle. He said it was like $8,000 or $9,000 or something like that. And I was like, it's probably cool that he like spent a lot of money because he loves this. And he's like, damn, this is all just off of guitar pedal money, baby. And I'm balling. So like those little moments, just I would imagine if I was him, I'd like to kind of show off about that part of my life too.
Well, yeah, I mean that's smart. I mean, he's a gear guy. It's that they all like all these types of people. You just kind of end up liking all the same sort of shit. We always say like there's a weird pipeline between like hardcore kids and fashion guys. If they didn't, work at UPS, they are now. Doing or like become barbers.
They were barbers, tattooers, worked at UPS. Yeah. Or
that's pretty much it.
That runs the whole game.
Or they got into fashion somehow because I feel like you can always kind of like because you're an old you did.
We've seen you in that Integrity tee.
Yeah.
Yes. But I did not have any bros who were UPS workers.
Oh, interesting.
Probably you're not
else.
from the Midwest, so there's a
Yeah,
pipeline.
yeah. I guess it was vegan cafe managers, we'll call it.
Yeah, see, we don't have those in the Midwest. You know what I mean? So you got trucks though. There's
you have one now.
Yeah. There's one that opened in the past year. It's not, it's not good. Did you growing up in that scene in California? What were the bands that you were seeing? Was it really small stuff, or because we had weird sects. We have Integrity coming out of Ohio, and there's all these cool scenes around Youth Crew and shit. But then you also, because we're in the Midwest, have this hyper Christian group of hardcore. There's a lot of. What was your groups?
Well, I went to high school with 18 Visions and Avenged Sevenfold and all those people. So I wasn't necessarily a big fan of that music, but that was, those are the people that I grew up with. But in Southern California, for everything, it's just a hub for whatever. So every weekend there'd be a show from a band and all over the world. So we got lucky that there was just such a huge scene over there that we didn't really need to have any bands. The bands would just come, and then we'd had a few openers, Throwdown and whatever will open for the bigger bands when they come into town or something like that. But I guess 90s, early 2000s hardcore was my sweet spot zone.
Was it the straight edge stuff, like Earth
American
Crisis?
Nightmare?
Yeah, an American Nightmare. Yeah.
Well, they weren't even straight edge, but
it was all straight edge, mostly straight edge. Yeah. Chris and I were both vegan straight edge warriors and photographers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah, I have a big old X on my foot still. I'm a drinker smoker boy, but I still got it. It's an Arial font. It's been there since I was 18.
Damn.
But
how big is it?
Oh, it's big. It covers the whole top of the foot.
It's the whole foot.
Bold. Still has not faded.
Really?
But it'll be there. And I have 2 Carry On tattoos. Did you ever see Carry On by chance?
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm familiar with Carry On.
That I would do anything to see that band. But
2 Carry On tattoos.
2 separate ones.
One wasn't enough.
One wasn't enough.
Damn, I like the dedication.
Yeah.
Yeah, Unbroken. They were a big Southern California band. But all those big Victory Records bands were the ones that were really crushing it, and then all the smaller ones would fill in.
How do you go from that to getting into DJing and EDM and that kind of music? Because I feel like I have not come to that until for some reason, my daughter has locked on to EDM, and I didn't show her anything other than I'll randomly, if she likes something, I'll try to find something else that's similar. But I've been oh shit, I gotta we're in Colorado, that's a thing here. Yeah. She's into it. I got to figure it out. So I've been trying to I've found things.
Well, she wears that Daft Punk shirt all the time. That's her
she liked that since she's 1 or 2, and then now. So it's I feel like I needed to get into it.
She's been listening to Daft Punk since she was 1.
Yeah,
that's
she
cool.
likes the videos that they made for Discovery. She liked those.
The animated ones.
Yeah, she's very into that. And it's one of those things where it's when she heard it the first time, she needed to she was taking it in, and that she just it really has resonated with her. So I felt the need okay, well, I got to get into it. I got to figure it out, at least understand the nuances. So but I came to it much later. I just never had any, it just never came across my desk. How did you get into that?
Well, when I was in high school, while being into hardcore music and all that stuff, I had a couple friends who did drugs and smoked weed every day, and they were into turntables and vinyl, and some of them were hip hop, Portishead kind of vibe, and then some of them were crazy. It was actually called happy hardcore. Was the genre. And it's one of the gnarliest genres of EDM music, but it's just hardcore, don don don, but very very twinkly, kind of pixie fairy voices and sounds. So it was a fucked up genre where you have to be so high to really bop in with it.
Sure.
But I had friends that were into all that stuff, so we would hang out with them sometimes. I would mess around on turntables with them, and like Portishead, like I was into some, I was into a lot of music that had like turntables and scratches and electronic sounds in them. And then as I stopped being straight edge and started doing drugs, electronic music gets better and better. But I really got into it when I started throwing a party. I became a DJ after I became a club promoter.
Oh, so.
And I just randomly fell into being a club promoter.
Like truly just like it just like came up as an option.
There was a club, and like I moved to LA out of my out of my mom's house, barely scraping by, trying to figure out what I was going to do, looking for a job. And then there was a nightclub that I met some people they worked at, or they worked there. And, I was like, if you guys have any, jobs or whatever, I'll do whatever. And one of the office manager was going to Burning Man for 2 weeks, and they needed somebody to come in and answer the phones. So I was like, yeah, okay, cool. I did that. And I just answered the phones at this club. And then after 2 weeks, they had me on full time, like assisting with like booking events and things like that. And every week, the Tuesday of every month, or every Tuesday of every week was always empty. Like nobody wanted to have an event on a Tuesday. It's like the slowest bar night, club night. So I just started throwing up a little party there on Tuesday nights just to do something. And it started very slowly. There'd be 10 people there every week, but half the people were kind of big deals, or like 1 week it would just be like, oh, Interpol is here. It'd be like me and like my friend Steve and Interpol, and that was it. and then like Brian Jonestown Massacre would DJ, or like Ariel Pink would DJ a lot, and all these random people would come in because you could smoke in there.
Yeah.
Because it was like an indoor-outdoor kind of thing. So people would just come in, and it was known as a spot where like you could do coke, you could smoke cigs, listen to rock and roll, and we'll give you a bar tab kind of thing. And then it just grew and grew. And, eventually Daft Punk was DJing at my club with no helmet.
With no helmet.
Oh, yeah.
Well, don't tell my daughter that part. She still believes they're robots, so you got to let her cook a little.
Don't let her listen to this one.
Yeah. Interesting. So were you booking the talent then too?
Yeah, so I was doing that party with a couple other people, and we were all kind of doing it together. But yeah, every week booking talent, DJs, bands, all that stuff. But then just like our podcast, the bigger it gets, then people start coming to us. And then like major labels would use us as their showcase party, where like, hey, we have a new artist, Lady Gaga or Charlie XCX or whatever, and we want them to play in front of the cool kids. So we would say, okay, well, we'll give Lady Gaga $300 and she could come perform her fucking shit or whatever. And that was it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it'd be really cool, crazy bands too. And they would just come through and do a show, because it was right at the beginning of like taking digital photographs of the club and sharing it online. So people just wanted to get their band or their DJ in front of a crazy packed crowd full of indie sleaze people going off, because if you have that photo, then you're good. You're good.
Interesting. I mean, it's funny, man, because it's like, between like that and the podcast and just kind of like it feels like, is it interesting to look, because it feels like a lot of these things, I guess, started out as not having like a specific intention, really. Do you know what I mean? Like, at least from what you've described, of like you said, the podcast started out as something and it kind of grew into something more. And that started out as one thing and grew into something more. Is it easier to piece back kind of like the history of things? Like I the first time I knew your name was actually from your previous podcast. And I don't remember how that came across my desk, but it did, and I loved it a lot, and I thought it was great. And it was early on too, in sort of like, there wasn't much. I mean, what was, it was either like, I don't want to say it was highly produced, but it was very like, it felt a little forced, a lot of what was happening at the time. So that felt like the first one that was really conversational and fluid, or at least the one that I knew of. And it's kind of easy to see like, oh, I see the line of like what you've been working on. Does it feel like it's become more clear to you as you've gotten older, like what you've been working on or towards, or like, has it always been like, I knew what I wanted it to be, it just, I needed like opportunities to come up?
I didn't know exactly what I wanted it to be, but I knew it was something that I felt drawn to do. Like with the music stuff and DJing and that whole world, that was me like being kind of plucked and dropped into a world and paying attention to a nightclub every week and thinking to myself like, okay, I could do that better. I would change this. And, like surely I'm not as bad as that DJ that I just had to pay $500 to. I will just DJ myself and keep the money and the music will be better. Win, win, win. But with podcasting, it was more of just like, I felt like I would have fun doing it and I would be good at it. And that was sort of the only thing. And then when I was doing my earlier podcast, Tall Tales, it was more of, just trying to grow my like DJ profile. I knew a bunch of DJs. I had a lot of DJ friends and they would come to my house and we would just have a couple beers and have a convo. And that was just to raise my profile as a DJ. And I was into having conversations and cracking jokes and hopefully being entertaining. So that was about that. And then with How Long Gone, there was more of like let's sit down. We didn't really have a business plan or like a strategy on like, we want to hit this goal at this time and we want X amount of listeners by in this amount of time. It was more of like, we separate the workflow. You do these things, I do these things. We release these episodes 3 times a week. We stick to it. We don't change it. We never stop doing it. Consistency, repeat it, get the reps in as much as possible, and then just, hope for the best. And that's sort of been the main strategy, is just as many as possible, crank it out when we're always there and we're never stopping.
Yeah, it's funny because anything I've done has sort of felt like in a similar way, where you just like, well, I'm just going to do this until it doesn't feel right anymore. You know what I mean? It'll just, because it'll naturally, I mean, I guess you'll like flummox a little bit. Like, did you guys ever feel like in the early days of doing the podcast, like, I don't know if I want to keep doing this, or or it just sort of all kept going? Well,
we've all had creative projects that have fizzled out.
Sure.
Many of us, a dozen of them. So we all know that feeling of like starting a thing and then it just kind of, and then your friends like, oh, you still doing that thing? And then, so we wanted to make sure that that never happened to us with How Long Gone, but we were also, air quotes, lucky that we started during quarantine. So we had all the time in the world. So it was, we had the blessing of living off of unemployment and, recording a podcast and playing tennis and drinking a smoothie. And that was all that we could do, So we had nothing but time to pod, and it was fun. And everyone else, all the guests that we had on, were equally as available and, a little bored, down to talk. And that's just, so I don't like to use the word lucky.
Sure.
And quarantine together, but that's, without that, I don't know if we would have been able to do it, because podcasting, unless you're a famous person already, it's a job that you have to put a lot of hours in for zero money.
Yeah.
You have to do a lot of groundwork for free, and you need to be able to have enough runway to do that. And COVID-19 gave us that runway.
Yeah. Yeah. And you did it just because it was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We would just FaceTime each other and record it, and that was it.
I think maybe, I'm sure you've talked about this, but how did you and Chris meet?
He was actually a club promoter as well in Atlanta, and we had a mutual friend who put us in touch, and Chris booked me to DJ this hip hop party in Atlanta, and he picked me up from the airport, and we just hit it off instantly. We're cracking jokes, and we were just friends ever since.
Yeah. It feels, it's like I said, it's kind of interesting when you sort of, I think anyone can do this to a certain extent, but you sort of map back like your kind of personal history and you're like, oh, that makes sense. And that makes sense. And that makes sense. Did it always feel for you that it was sort of like you were locking like one thing after the other and it just felt like it had nice energy, or has there been times where it was like, fuck, this isn't working out. I don't really know what I'm doing. You know what I'm saying? Like, did it feel ever like you just weren't sure, or did it always feel like it was just all connecting?
With the podcast, or just my life in general?
Just life, maybe.
No, there's been lulls where I did not know what I was going to do. Like, I guess in between, like where I'm at now, as a actual professional podcaster. Before I was kind of like trying to figure out what I was going to do, and I was doing like work with some creative agencies and some strategy and some experiential branding and marketing and things like that. And it was cool. And Chris and I still do agency work, him a lot more than I do. But, I just really enjoyed, being able to pod. And I really didn't like to drive and have a commute and have a boss and have to do things that I did not want to do because I'm being paid.
Yeah.
I just really didn't like knowing that, like somebody paying you a salary and saying like, you got to email this person and tell them this information. And if that information is really bad and you're going to ruin their day and it's not my fault, but I have to be the one to do it. I was just like, I just want to not ever have to do that again. So luckily, knock on wood, I'll keep potting.
Cool. Do you think like what else is there? Well, for example, like I really like the food writing that you do. I think it's really refreshing. I've always been into like, even more so than just maybe like cooking as its own thing or food, is I really like I would like food personalities and shit growing up and Food Network and all that shit. I just really liked the idea of that being like the center focus of interesting conversation and culture and stuff. Like I'm sure you do, but the interesting thing about your writing is it feels so, especially when you first started doing it, or when I started reading it, it's been in sort of this like weird place where it was either negative but without any real opinion, or overtly positive and just not really, didn't feel like the person was taken out of the equation. It just felt like everything was copy paste of like one of two camps in food writing. Do you have any like what was your inspiration like, or what has been your inspiration in like with the writing aspect of it? Because I think that's a unique aspect of what you do, but also just that industry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I've never been a writer or a reader really. All through school, I just kind of fudged my way through tests. I never read any books. I never studied or wrote anything or learned how to write anything. So my writing style is just how I talk usually. So, some people find that to be very refreshing. As long as I have an editor to correct all the errors, grammatical and spelling and otherwise. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's sort of the same thing I was talking about with DJing or podcasting, where you look at some food writing and you think, well, I could at least do this. Or a lot of it was sort of started by a pet peeve of mine that I have from like misleading headlines or like subtitles where it's going to say like, we answer this question that we've been pondering for centuries about cornbread or whatever it is, and it's like and then you read the article and then you're like, well, you didn't answer the question. You just talked about the history of cornbread for 2,000 words. And I always hated that shit. And I always would look around and ask other people who are like into food and food writing, and I would ask them like, how come every article leads you to believe it is going to be about this cool subject and it's never about that? And they just say like, oh, that's just how it is, man. And then so in my mind, I would say, do the actual thing that you set out to do. And you don't have to be the best writer, but people will just be excited that you answered the question. And it can be, the answer could be good or bad. It can be predictable or totally curveball, whatever it is. It can completely disagree with me, but as long as you explain the reasons why and like explain the strategy behind your decision, anyone's happy to read it. So you can have a very fucked up hot take about something, but if the person explains it in a way, you're like, okay, I disagree with you completely, but I liked reading that because you showed me a new side of something that I would never look at because I like the way you talk, which means I like the way you write, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the kind of stuff that I've always been into. And also just food writing is just such a stale world of,
100%.
you know, like there is some humor there from some people, but you know, people are very cautious about walking the line and being so inoffensive that it's just bleached out. And you know, I don't want to be a hater. I don't want to try to destroy a restaurant. I don't want to write a awful review of a mom and pop place and get it shut down. But also, you know, you could say things that are bad about a restaurant and maybe they'll read it and change it and get better.
Well, it also just felt like there hasn't been that many in total of like people like household names that would do any sort of, especially food writing, but even food personalities. I mean, like I'd argue that the coolest one would be Bourdain, and you know, cool is maybe relative at times with him. There's very cool aspects and very uncool aspects at the, you know,
Sure.
and like,
but yeah, he's on, yeah. But the bar is low that Bourdain is head and shoulders above everyone in that world. He's a cool person that cool people like, but also like all of our moms like watching it when it comes on TV. You know what I mean? And that nobody else has that.
Yeah. And there just hasn't even been anyone that you even like, I don't know. For me, it's like the cool factor is even kind of hard there. Now I understand like, you know, it can be, but it's not, because restaurants are cool. You walk in, you can immediately know if the vibe is cool or not. But for some reason, like food writing, food personality and stuff, it just always felt so, I don't know, like you're saying, just nondescript at best. Or if they tried to add personality, it was always like they were trying to get their book sold at Target. You know what I mean? It just never felt like, I don't know. It never felt like it had any like edge or opinion, and it seems like an easy place to have edge or opinion. So I think that's probably what I responded so much to your writing, is that it just felt like you said, like, if you come out swinging with a hard opinion, that's great, you know, but it's very subjective, the whole thing, and everyone gets to experience it. It's not even like, I don't know, it's not even really like music. It's more so because everyone has experienced and will experience and has some sort of harsh opinion on it. And they're all valid. It's just who's going to explain it or word it.
That's the interesting part about it. And you were comparing it to music, where you can listen to a song and, you know, musically chord progressions and melodies and tones and frequencies, those are like hard data points of information that you can judge something objectively on. But if a band is lame, a band is lame, you know? Like, if a band is not cool, they're just not cool, and no one's going to see them. That's just what it is. They could have amazing tone and chord structure and rhythm timing and blah, blah, blah. If it ain't cool, it ain't cool. But and food is the same way, where there are measures of points, salt and fat and acid and heat, that can be, you know, you could have a chord structure of ingredients where it's like, this is objectively a good thing. This is how it works. But a tomato is just a tomato. Like, it has no personality. So like, ingredients are not cool or cool. They're you know, a green onion is just a green onion. and if you mix it with some other things, an exact thing is going to happen.
Yeah.
And so that it's kind of interesting where you can use science to get somewhere, and it doesn't have to be like, it doesn't have to have that chutzpah or that it factor. It can just taste good.
100%. Is there other things that you'd like to do in food, like beyond writing? I mean, it's tough because it's like if you don't, it's a tricky one of those industries where it's like, I know there's plenty of people that want to be like hardcore chefs and work in a crazy kitchen and, you know, do that whole thing, and that's cool. But I would never. I like it a lot. And I wouldn't. Well, I don't know. I like the energy, but I wouldn't want to do that every single day of my life.
Love Starbucks.
I love working at Starbucks. That's different energy.
Yeah, I have. I don't know if I want. I don't know if I would ever want to write a cookbook because I don't really like cookbooks that much. I mean, honestly, you know, I would like to have a TV show that is sort of, you know, a cross between Bourdain and Diners, Drive-Ins, and Dives. Like the Bourdain elements that I like are, you know, it is Bourdain. He's going to these cool places and eating this cool food with these interesting people, more interesting often than what Guy Fieri is dealing with. But I don't need to have like the adventure. I don't need to have the let's go White River rafting in Thailand and get into the geopolitical structure of this village.
Yeah.
And I don't need any of that stuff. I just want to go to really good restaurants, eat food with interesting people, and talk about it. And I think that's all that people really need to see.
Yeah, I mean, truthfully, I mean, I think that's a great idea in the sense that it's like the divers, I don't know, Triple D. You know, like what's great about it is it feels like it's approachable, and whereas like most other cooking, I mean, like those types of shows feel so. It's like if you're not someone who travels internationally all the time or is able to jump from this place to this place and understand and meet with politicians while you're also going to these and like taking it so fucking seriously. The other way's better. It's because it feels real and something I could accomplish.
Yeah,
but
it's like a restaurant down in Daytona Beach. Like
yeah,
and that's what's more approachable, you know.
Yeah, it's too approachable. I think that the world of diners, drive-ins, and dives, and Michelin level restaurants, there are so many restaurants in every city. Every week a new one opens up, and it doesn't have to be like a dumbass food truck that's selling like waffle, nacho, smash burgers or whatever. And it doesn't have to be like 3 Michelin star tweezer food. It can just be like good restaurants operated by cool people. And I think, you know, people watch food shows because A, it's just entertaining. Everyone likes food. And B, you get to learn how to cook and you get to get ideas and inspiration for food, find new restaurants you want to go to. You know, everyone just loves it. So, you know, go to a restaurant, watch how they make the food, and talk about it in a cool way. And it doesn't seem that hard to do it cooler than Guy. No offense to the god.
Yeah. He's doing he's in his own lane.
But also, he's so good at doing it. He's a fucking billionaire, and you know, 5-year-olds and 105-year-olds watch him every single day, over and over again, like Rob Dyrdek and ridiculousness. You know,
of course,
they figured something out. I just don't want to. I don't need to be that rich.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it really just feels like it is ripe though. I mean, food YouTube used to be huge. It's not what it used to be at all. The bigger stuff, the networks aren't even really there anymore. Cookbooks have gotten to be so niched, but also so boring. And it's like it does really feel ripe for something to happen. And I think what you're describing is kind of it. It's just I want to see people that look like me and have decent taste, but aren't taking it so fucking seriously. Just talking about, you know, a mutual passion as opposed to what it feels now, where it's like it's one of the other. It's either so low down or it's so high up, and there's nothing in between, and that's kind of a bummer. So yeah,
and unfortunately, or I guess not unfortunately, but all the most successful cooking shows, it's about the personality of the host, and you don't really remember any of the food from Triple D. You don't remember any of the food from Great British Bake Off. You just remember, a character that
Yeah.
was just a one-of-a-kind personality or a host making a funny joke or whatever. That's all you really need, and then food is just the medium. So, typically, like you were saying, YouTube cooking is down, Food Network and all that shit is a joke, and there's nothing really good happening. So, typically in art spaces or whatever media movements, you do whatever the opposite is of what is not working. And I think people just haven't figured out what the opposite of that is, because it's a model that it's not that old. Like cooking on television, it's like 50 years old probably, whereas cooking is the oldest. Cooking and having sex are the two oldest things in the world. So it's people don't know what to do, and I don't know what to do, but I'm experimenting with some ideas. So hopefully there's going to be some video stuff in a little bit, but
Fuck yeah.
it's about me. I can just be cooking whatever. I don't need to be inventing a new amazing dish every week. I just have to be myself.
Yeah,
Hopefully
it's
people
like
like
it's the way you talk about it, and it's your experience with it that I think is interesting. I mean, because the right person can convince me the Gatorade's the best drink of all time. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't need to be anything complicated.
No, it's the character.
Yeah,
It's
just
about
tell me
the character.
tell me why you're into it, because and then I think that it's like a nice thing. It's like the easiest thing to bond with over someone, because like how many people haven't had a Gatorade? You know what I mean? Like that's an easy one. You know what I mean? So it's like an easy way to hang out with people. So
And also, the more you talk about things you don't like, the more you bond with people. And the YouTube personalities, the Food Network personalities, any major media personalities, they only talk positively about everything all the time. It's very rare that they say negative things about something or talk about what they dislike. And if they do, it comes out in a weird way it's just weird. It's inauthentic. And people are really refreshed and drawn to people who can clearly and confidently say, I don't like this, that's good, that's bad. Because then if you bond over that, and every time you say something that you name 100 things you don't like, and then when I convince you that Gatorade is the best drink in the world, you might actually listen and believe me, because you hate all the shit I hate too. Mm-hmm. Which means you must like this one Gatorade. What's the best Gatorade flavor of all time?
Riptide Rush, light purple.
yeah,
Woo! Okay.
like
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
You got what's yours? You got one locked and loaded?
I like light purple. I like light blue, and also sometimes an orange and a lemon lime.
Anything but the red for me, I'll be honest with you. I'll drink any of the
Too
colors
much.
but red. I like the cucumber lime or
The melon.
yeah, I really like that one.
little flavor in that one.
It's a good one. See, we love Gatorade.
Yeah,
Gatorade's
we love
good.
Gatorade.
Great, yeah. That's probably why it came to my head. What got you into it? Was it like did you grow up cooking, or was it like TV and movies and shit like me?
I grew up cooking a little bit, not a ton, but probably like Food Network, like Alton
Yeah.
Brown
Yeah.
was probably the guy who I watched the most, because I was really into the scientific side of cooking. I really liked if you add this to this, this will happen. My brain was always just like responded to like scientific methods more than, I guess, any other methods.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What's it been like doing the little bit of red carpet that you have? This is a little bit of a dream job to me. So it's only because there's something that happens with red carpets that doesn't happen anywhere else, where it's like, well, I guess most of what I've seen of yours, it's been edited down or whatever, because it's a different world now. But the old versions, what I loved is that there is a lot of kind of standing in awkward silence that I really respond to. That seems fun. What's it like doing it? Did you like it?
Yeah, I like doing it. It's my favorite part about it is it's over so quickly.
Yeah.
Like because you hype yourself up, you're nervous, there's cameras, there's lights, there's makeup and people telling you to stand in places, and there's like a real sense of urgency and importance. And when there's like 100 celebrities in one room all lined up, there's like this weird hierarchy energy going on where, like if anything could change at any moment if a whale comes down the carpet, if you know what I mean. So we could be interviewing a cool person, B-list, C-list celeb, having a good convo. And if you get a Jeremy Allen White who just got out of his Escalade, bye, bitch.
Yeah.
And so you always that always happens, and there's a producer somewhere that is orchestrating the whole thing, and you are just doing as you're told, and the awkward silences, you don't even notice them because it's just moving. It goes so fast.
Yeah.
So it's cool because you just do it for like an hour, and you're on for like 10 minutes out of that hour, and then you're standing around for 50 minutes. And then when you're done, everyone was like, dude, great job. You killed it. And I don't even know what I did.
Sounds great. Yeah. Do you still feel like you're getting like starstruck at this point? Because obviously, working the parties and stuff before, you've been around enough celebrity types that it has to be a little less. You grew up in LA or near it. So it feels like you'd be a little less than the average person, or do you still feel like one will get you now and then?
I every once in a while I'll get starstruck. I don't have a good example right now, unfortunately, but yeah, I think I've been around celebs enough now to not really go crazy over them. But I mean, and also if you're trying to become a cool famous person and hang out with cool famous people, you can't be impressed by them. They can smell it on you, and they will run away from you if you kind of put out that energy. So you can't act like you don't care about them. You actually have to not care about them, or else they will not be interested in talking to you.
Mm-hmm.
Because, celebs, they're famous because they're talented, very talented, or very attractive. And a lot of them are not that cool. And a lot of them are like actively trying to become cooler because they don't have time to learn about stuff because they're busy being a celeb. So a lot of people are like, dude, like, tell me about music or restaurants, or like I just go wherever my manager tells me to go. So, I think celebs are fun, but I'm trying to think of. I mean, you go into a Grammy party and Dua Lipa standing there. I don't care who the fuck you are. You're gonna do a little gulp kind of situation.
Yeah. It's like it's a funny thing because it's like I feel like I have been very nervous around like very specific people, like at this old like rock club I'd hang out at in Chicago. There'd be like a random band, it'd be like, I'm all fucked up, you know what I mean? And then like met Thurston Moore one time, and he's like the most regular guy ever. When you meet, he just seems like a regular guy, but I was nervous as fuck the whole time. But then I ran a door into Kanye West one time and then had to apologize to him and his security because he didn't know it was like a whole thing. And I never felt anxious the whole time, even though that's like one of the biggest celebs you could meet. For some reason I don't know. He hadn't created enough meaning in my life for me to have built him into something bigger than it was just like a guy who's got a ton of money.
Yeah. That's the problem is there are certain people where they have done something or they've been a part of your life at a very pivotal moment.
Yeah.
They wrote your, Bon Iver, you listened to that record 1,000 times when your girlfriend dumped you. Mm-hmm. And when you see Bon Iver at the Whole Foods, you cannot say anything like that because people who do things like that, like a Thurston Moore or whatever, where like people have a deep connection to them musically or lyrically, once a day somebody comes up and tells them that, like, bro, you changed, your music saved me, like that kind of stuff. So you got to just be like, big fan, bro, keep it moving. Yeah. Because otherwise they're going to be like, oh no, not another one,
Yeah.
The curse of touching souls and spirits, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Do you feel like as things have gone well for you guys that you're getting more and more of that, and is it something you like, or is it something that's like frustrating? Not frustrating, but
I think no, it's cool. I mean, I think it's amazing. I like it a lot, but everyone has their limit. The more people that come up and talk to me and say that they're fans or whatever, is just a good indicator that I'm doing something right.
Yeah.
As long as they're cool, nice people. If they're shitty looking people, then I need to make some changes. But if everyone is cool and nice and they say they're a fan and they're, sometimes people tell me crazy stories like I had cancer and I listened to your podcast when I was in the hospital in chemo because you had 500 episodes and I had nothing but time to kill, and you guys like helped get me through a really rough patch. Like nobody's going to hear that and be like, get the fuck out of here, bitch. Like it's a very touching, cool thing to see, but everyone has their limit. And, if you talk to 50 people in one night, it's just like, it feels like a speed dating thing.
Yeah.
Where, at the end of a show, you'll just see the eyeballs on you and you gotta be like, nice talking to you. I gotta talk to that person, this person. And then at a certain point, your gas tank is on E and you gotta get out of there.
Did you have like a moment in everything that with the podcast, I guess specifically, where it felt like a specific moment where it's like, oh, the gears have changed now. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, ours is not big by any means, and we've got the store, but we work out of this. We're in Boulder, which is an unusual place for us to do this thing. I mean, we have all these reasons that we do it here, and we love it here, and it's great and all this. But it very much feels like kind of doing things inside of a bubble. And then we get like somebody recognized us in Japan that we didn't know, that we're like, oh, I love the pod and I love the YouTube shit, and you're like, oh, fucking cool, man. Like I never thought of that being big enough to reach someone there, but obviously it does. And it's like, oh fuck, I got to think about that have you had any of those moments where it's been like, oh, I just you just do it in this room and then you don't think about it, and then but it's going was there a moment where it felt like, oh fuck?
I think I get that moment every time when the guest is a cool famous person and they say that they already listened to the show and they know who we are. That I feel that same feeling every time that happens, where you're like, oh shit, because a lot of times
because you didn't even know.
Yeah, because we did not know. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, they're a listener, so it'll be fun or whatever. Yeah. That's cool. And sometimes they'll be a little more reserved about how much they listen to your pod, or they'll tell you at the end, like. But when somebody says like, oh, by the way, I listened to the show, big fan. That's the thing where that's the moment that you were describing. Where, this little thing has gotten this far, and now I'm talking to this cool person, and they're doing it because they want to talk to me, not because it's what their PR agent told them to do.
Yeah, that is
well,
really
it's that
cool.
too, but also because they want to talk to me.
A little bit of both.
A little bit of both. Yeah. No problem here.
Does it make it better or worse if they know ahead of time?
Usually, good question. I think it's both. It's both. It usually it's a good thing because it removes a lot of formalities and explanations. But some of the best episodes are with people who have no idea who the fuck we are.
Yeah.
Don't even really want to talk to us, and then over the course of an hour, it's like wrestling a anaconda.
Yeah.
And then you put him down, and then you do a handshake at the end.
Do you get people that want, like when you meet people, or you meet like in that scenario where there's somebody that's listening to the pod and they're on the thing, is it people wanting you to do like your bits? Do you know what I mean? Because they're gonna obviously like take a person, these like slivers of personality of you guys, and like turn it into like not a caricature, because you guys do a lot of episodes, so I think that there's enough nuance. But I think everyone naturally wants to do it. We've had it at like parties and stuff. It's like, yeah, like you do the thing, and I'm like, what? And they're like, the thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. You know what I mean? Like you have to like kind of assume the situation, like
what our example of that is they want Chris to insult them. They want Chris to be a dick, so they will usually unconsciously be rude to him, or like say something a little like out of pocket to him. Subconsciously they don't, and when they say it, you could see their face where like, oh god, why did I say that? But it's because they subconsciously want Chris to make fun of their shoes or whatever it is. So that's kind of that example, but they just kind of want to, it's parasocial relationships, man. They're a weird thing, and it affects everybody. Celebrity, like there are famous people with millions of fans and followers who have weird parasocial relationships with us. And there are, 10-year-old kids who have weird parasocial relationships with us. It doesn't matter how cool or famous or popular you are. It's just, if you listen to a podcast that has almost 700 episodes now in 4 years, you just get into someone's head.
Yeah.
And you just feel like you're there in the room.
Yeah.
You ever go back to any old episodes randomly? I mean, obviously listening to your own thing is weird, but like, or have you ever heard it or something where it's like been like, oh Jesus, I'm like a lot different? Because it's like, it's weird that you're documenting your personality to a degree.
I don't really go back and listen to old ones. I mean, I feel like, or I'd like to think that we get better as time progresses. But it's peaks and valleys. Things go up and things go down, and you get on a roll and you get on a not roll sometimes. But I don't really go back and listen because I spend so many hours a week listening to myself already. Just editing the podcast. I feel like I have a very good current reading of what we're doing in my head always. Maybe a little too much.
What's your indicator? Like, do you have like a personal indicator that like an episode is going well or going to be good?
I mean, I guess it would be when guests ask us questions. That's always a good sign. But otherwise, it's just laughter.
Yeah.
Because people, when you're doing an audio only podcast, people will often do the silent laugh, where I can see on the Zoom screen that I'm laughing, but I'm not making any sound, so the audience can't hear.
Yeah.
So when people do a genuine laugh, an audible sound is always a good sign, because a lot of people will do the fake laugh just to be, not to be rude and keep the convo going, but they might not want to be on record laughing at a joke that maybe could be offensive or something. You know what I mean?
Well, man, we're really big fans of the pod. Obviously, like I said, I was.
Oh, do you guys listen?
We listen. Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
And,
I was gonna say, wait, what the fuck?
That's crazy. That's so cool that you guys listen.
And I love what you did with the food writing and everything and what you're working on. So really appreciate you doing this man. It means a lot to us, and it was fun to chat. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. It was fun, fellas.
Yeah.